Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am the CHALL. The San Antonio Spurs are bottom of the Western Conference with 10 straight losses on the bounce. What needs to happen? What can happen? Do the Spurs fans need to look at the NBA draft lottery this early on? Now, before we get started, make sure you do like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell to never miss a YouTube video. We are doing sports, theme parks, interviews, everything on this channel now, so please do, if you are a theme park enthusiast, if you're a sports enthusiast, do stay tuned for loads of content coming on the channel. We've got some big plans for the next few years, so please make sure you stick around. Make sure you do follow all the social media platforms at the bottom of your screen and in the description down below as well. And for now, let's have a look at everything to do with the San Antonio Spurs, what's going on and where do they need to improve. So to kick things off, we're going to look at what seems to be the headline that's starting to dominate a little bit. The NBA draft is very exciting for many reasons, and this could maybe give the Spurs fans hope long term, and that is Victor Wembanyama. According to LJ Ellis of Spurs Talk, the prospect of the San Antonio Spurs drafting NBA 2023 draft prospect Victor Wembanyama, in quotes, has dominated internal conversations. What are the positives of Victor Wembanyama, the French-born prospect, and seems to be one of the most elite draft prospects in the history of the NBA on record? Well, this 7'4" power forward has enough mobility to defend on the perimeter. He's a good shooter, allowing him to play in the 4 as well. Now, this could force Spurs to reconfigure the front court. It creates an amazing potential combination of Wembanyama and Jakob Poeltl. Now, this point combo of a Wembanyama-Poeltl power center combo, it will be the biggest in the NBA, which gives Spurs real height, but also it gives them real strength and ability, because Wembanyama is a very thin frame. He's not an NBA frame ready yet. However, he's got all the skills to be an elite pro basketball player. And Jakob Poeltl on his own is a decent center. Do not argue the fact that Poeltl is not a good player, because he is a good player. And for me, could do a job elsewhere as well as in the Spurs. He could keep doing the job in the Spurs once he recovers from that injury of his. However, that combination next season could be absolutely deadly. Now, when you look at Wembanyama, I think it's between him and Scoot Henderson for the first draft pick in 2023. That's just my personal opinion. I think it's between Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. Now, there are 3 teams at this very moment that I consider to be in line lottery-wise for the #1 draft pick. Orlando Magic, Detroit Pistons, and the San Antonio Spurs. They're the 3 I'm considering to be the favourites for the #1 pick at this very moment. The Magic and the Detroit Pistons are having awful seasons, as are the San Antonio Spurs as well, among a few other teams, but I think a few other teams are less favourites for me personally. Odds and favourites, that can change between now and the end of the regular season. However, at this current stage, it's between the Magic, the Pistons, and the Spurs for me for that #1 pick. I think there is more choice than just Wembanyama. Obviously, Wembanyama's the focus for the draft at the moment, as he is probably one of the top choices for #1 draft pick. However, in my personal opinion, there are a couple of other options that you could put in at small forward to fill long-term to Keldon Johnson and give Jeremy Sochan that competition. Now, Brandon Miller immediately springs to mind for other draft picks in 2023. Depending how the lottery works out. He can shoot over guards, take bigger defenders off the dribble, uses crafty handles to get to the rim, and he's a mid-range shooter as well. He's got a really nice pull-up jump and a step-back jump. Great elevation on his shots, and if he gets more consistency, he's got the chance to be a very high-level 3-point shooter player. Now, if they wants to go for the other side of the picks and wants to go for an NBA frame-ready 6'7" small forward, then Cam Whitmore is your choice of investment. The 6'7" powerful dunker powerhouse small forward Whitmore is the one, with lots of energy, handling the ball in the open court, a nice touch from mid-range and in, and is developing his perimeter offense. Now, Whitmore and Miller, I think, are 2 very talented players and will go very highly. They'll be, in my opinion, minimum top 10, possibly even top 5 draft picks for me. I think it's kind of, obviously it's still too early for the draft at the moment, so we are kind of touch and go as to whether they're top 5 or top 10 at this very moment. However, obviously you never know what can happen. But I think for me personally, I think that Miller and Whitmore will go in the top 10 in the draft. There's no two ways about it. Unless something completely downgraded or went downhill for any of these players. I think that Miller and Whitmore will be there in that top 10 minimum for me. At this current moment. There is the potential of the trade network because, of course, you know, it's not just all about the draft, not just all about Brandon Miller, Cam Whitmore, Victor Wembanyama. It's not about the NBA draft only, 100%. It is also the trade network, the trade window. What happens in that trade window? And one particular player that's on the lips of many, many fans, pundits, journalists, everyone around the NBA for the trade deadline is Jakob Poeltl. Now, Jakob Poeltl obviously is the centre. He's injured at the moment. However, there has been talk of a potential trade. So the San Antonio Spurs would receive Ken Birch and a 2024 first-round pick from Toronto. And Toronto would receive just Jakob Poeltl. So Poeltl goes one way, and going the other way would be Birch and a 2024 first-round draft pick. Now, here's some things about Kem Birch from the Toronto Raptors. He had a very shaky season last season. He only averaged about 4.5 points per game and shot under 50% from the field. He sometimes gets washed in the mix on his defensive end because of his inability to switch, and his lack of true size leaves him vulnerable as a rim protector. I think the last season he was ropey, and I think him falling down the pecking order even more, for me, provides a big hole. I think it leaves some question marks over his availability for the Raptors, where he goes next. Now, the Toronto Raptors, for me, are lacking a very out-and-out centre, a proper centre. If you look at Kokolo, I think he's inexperienced. He's still got a lot to learn, but has got plenty of potential. And Siakam is not a centre. So what would we look for in terms of a centre? Well, I think Poeltl fits the answers Toronto is looking for. Now, it's just a question of would either side do the trade? Now, Toronto, as I said, would be getting a centre in Jakob Poeltl. Now, what would the San Antonio Spurs be getting as well as just a rotational Raptors centre in Ken Birch? They'd be getting the 2024 first round draft pick as well. There is one player that stands out for me as a choice for the first round draft pick, even at this early stage, and that is Xavier Booker. Now, he is a centre as well. I'm going to go on about the reasons why I decided to choose Xavier Booker at this early stage at the moment, but here's a little few things about Booker in general as a player. So Xavier Booker is a springy 6'11" centre who can put the ball on the deck and excels in the face-up game, and he also shows the makings of a decent mid-range jumper. Now, obviously, the 2024 draft is still a while away, quite a while away, in fact, and Xavier Booker, for me, would be, at this early stage, a tremendous pick for the Spurs in the 2024 draft if this trade did go ahead. So what would the Spurs have long term? Ken Birch, I'll be perfectly honest with you, with his age, even though he's got the experience, I don't think his age falls in line with any long-term planning for the San Antonio Spurs. If anything, I think by doing this trade, you'd be having Ken Birch as well as Collins, who for me would be your centres for the sort of next 12 to 18 months minimum for the Spurs if they went ahead with this trade. But then you've got that chance in 2024 to pick up a strong-looking potential centre like an Xavier Booker who would long-term replace Jakob Poeltl. I think there's plenty of potential there in terms of what we could be seeing from the San Antonio Spurs going forward. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly what lies in store for the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, this 10 straight loss run at the moment in this current season is not good enough, and I'm sure Popovich will know that. For me personally, and I've said this before in a video, if you want to play for Greg Popovich, you need to be a strong defender. I think by 10 straight losses and the amount of score lines that they've been losing by, you know, with at least a couple of them being, you know, double-digit scores for the Spurs and triple digits for the opponents, it's not looking great. So you need strong defenders in that team. You bring in Wembanyama from the draft, it gives you that defensive performance as well as that ability to be an elite scorer as well in that power forward position. You go with Whitmore or you go with Miller, again, you've got that sort of scoring asset to them. Go with Ken Birch, who has been shaky, however, could provide different defensive duties that could suit the Spurs style of play more than the Toronto Raptors. And of course, Xavier Booker, with his potential, he could be, again, a good defensive and attacking player under Greg Popovich. For me personally, I think the Spurs could be in for a long haul. However, I think if they wait it out, I think it could be absolutely worth it. So, Spurs fans, comment down below this video. What do you think? Do you want Miller? Do you want Whitmore? Do you want to go out for Victor Wembanyama if you get the first pick in the draft next year? Comment down below. But for now, guys, thank you very, very much for watching this video. I am the CHALL. Ta-ra for now.